Should I say good morning, Arizona? By the way, a little quirk about me, if space management and architecture was not my career, I would have been a talk show host, and this is the height of it, so please bear with the drama that comes with it. Okay, so a little about me. I'm with Stanford Healthcare. If you don't know what that is, meet me outside the room. I'd really like to know where you've been. But I've been there only 3 years, so I plead guilty to everything after this. My role is as an executive director for space planning and space management. And I think when Michael and Tracy approached me as to what you're going to speak about, I said, well, let's try selling sand to Egypt. And I think they had a healthy sense of humor in calling that innovation and put me in this slot. How many of you are in space management and facilities? Okay, how many of you really think innovation is the crux of space management, or is it survival? Like you just need to survive and get through your faculty needs and your staff needs and your patient care needs, your VP needs. And so, by the way, this is recorded, so I have the right to remain silent after this, okay? So anyway, this is a session where I like to really learn from you all because I was coming with a lot of vent. But since I joined, and I joined at the peak of COVID, I'll share just my journey as to what we have done. In the new work era, we had something called COVID, of course. Many of us have forgotten what that means. But a little bit more about Stanford, a very enigmatic institution. If you've watched Newsweek, we are one of the top world's hospitals. We are 16th. In our minds, we always consider ourselves to be the number one. So wherever we go, we say they're number one in the world. But we're 16th by Newsweek. We are the flagship academic medical center associated with the university. Currently in the portfolio that is within Stanford Healthcare, we have about 3 hospitals and about 170 clinics, all managed by my little team, and I have one of them here. We're about at 20,000 employees, still growing, depends on how your contract employees are. 605 licensed bed, really? How many of you believe that's the number? We are at a capacity surge, and we dangle the number 605 officially, but we go with, since COVID, we've ranged around 850. And so managing that has been the biggest charge that my team does. We are a 6.9, inching towards 9.9 billion. So compared to other hospitals that are struggling, Stanford is still okay. Still, we're asked to do more with less. We have our partners in crime with our LPCH, SMCH, or Stanford Medicine Children's Hospital. They share floors, walls with us, and we consider them our partners in crime. And then we have, as well in my portfolio, Tri-Valley, exploring other side of the world. So every time I see or hear the word space, I feel like I need to become Captain Kirk. Space, the final frontier, the mission to go look at old antique floor plans, explore innovations and efficiencies, and boldly go where no other hospital has gone in changing your floor plan. So we, as a team of all of 12, growing to 13, every day we try to add one more person through contract, managed over 400 space requests a year. Okay, just take that. That's a day a space request we get. Okay, so most of the time we are just trying to sell sand to Egypt. We're like, what can you do? How can you operationalize? We do more, also under my portfolio is the moves ad, so we move about 180 assignments over a year. But all of this we do in a 5 million square feet, all the thresholds are there. But how we do this is now we have a very robust structure in how we do decision making. And that's what I wanted to share with you all today. So this is our portfolio, and ever growing. And out of this is many, 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 many small projects that come to us from preeminent faculty members. We just, Space Management, and Heather is with me here, launched what is considered one of the first in the world's human neural circuitry. It's a one room, but it's where they're now using the neural circuitry, an implant from the neural circuitry, to mine and use optics, light, to treat for mental health. This was done in a room, and we literally innovated with the preeminent faculty member, award-winning Carl Dazarat from Stanford and his team, in how do you do these kinds of things with three-dimensional cameras, holographics, data that transact at 3 seconds between, billions and gigabytes, billions of gigabytes of data. So all of this comes with a price to what we have to do on an everyday basis. So how do we do it? Okay. When we are talking, and you know this if you're doing an AMC, your business, you have to always match the eloquence and the intelligence of the academy there. So this is how we now approach selling sand to Egypt. We ask, and we go more transparent now in how do you do your work? So this is a system that we have implemented very successfully at Stanford as our go-to resource whenever a space request comes. Do you do direct patient care? Do you do indirect patient care? And do you really need to be on site? And how many days are you there? Now, everybody gives their own whimsical data, so we always take it with a bucket of salt. But in general, these are our standard definitions of how we deliver space. And this is the ta-da moment for us. We have to make this, all of us are familiar with space guidelines. You write out words and now nobody cares about it. So now I have to go with, okay, you do not decide where you are. We have a table format that we will tell you. You tell us your inputs and we will tell you how the outputs are going to be. And that's why the location became a bookend. So you give us where you do your care and we will tell you where you need to be to do your service and care. So this is one of our benchmark industry space guidelines. I'm going to brag about it. I'm sure you've done much far better work in your world. I'd love to learn more, but this is what we have done at SHC. And the way we do it, it's an example. So you can become like this Chinese puzzle. You can slide your where you are. So an example is if you are an assistant patient care manager, then you tell us, you're with it, SHC, we also have other entities, LPCH and School of Medicine. Very clearly this was to say, okay, School of Medicine, academic, please go and talk to them. But the type of work you do, you are providing direct patient care, so you need to be in the unit. But we couldn't say, sorry, you're not getting a private office anymore. So we put that on a table. We said, look where you are, trace where you do, how you do it, how many days you are in. Okay, you get a shared office. Ta-da! We could have said that in one moment, but we had to go through this just to get them there. But we have many of this. One of our ongoing efforts is this glove didn't fit all. We now have enterprise sharing. So we have community providers and we have faculty who never step onto our campus. So we are now rewriting these guidelines to make it work through a very sophisticated database. So how are we doing this? So we have just embarked, and I say we, LPCH has gone ahead of us, in a pilot mode. How many of you, when you took occupancy sensors to your clientele 5 years ago, said, what, you're going to watch me? From where? How? How dare you? Okay, this is what we did. We did it, we still did it, went undercover, but we continue to use technology now to help us get to decision-making faster. Because we couldn't tell them enough, you are never there in the room. Now we needed data and we needed an occupancy sensor to say the same message. But it is one of our 4 pillars that is governing now and henceforth all our future growth and scaling efforts. And we can't go anywhere out without saying sustainability and AI. So we have combined both, using occupancy sensors to do both energy management systems as well as space optimization. So you can read who is in the room. I can't say who yet. I've posed that question to our vendors, but we can say why they are there and when they are there. So that's our interest to continue to explore technology and a database world to use occupancy sensors to optimize our spaces, because it's no longer tenable when our faculty, our residents, and our staff come to us and say, those people are never there. Can I change that conference room to a consult room, or a conference room to a team room? How many of you have those coming on an everyday basis? And so here is what we tried. It's still an evolving discussion on the longevity of this particular system, but here is the interest that we have both work point sensors as well as the room sensors, and we are ensuring that it's absolutely private. It's only a thermal read, and it gives us data metrics that look like that. Okay, now comes in ChatGPT. You could take all of that data that comes and just plug it into ChatGPT, and that's the recommendation it comes with, its trends. So this was just of recent that we are recognizing how much we can harvest. And space management, when we compare ourselves to robotic arms or, surgeries performed by robots, when it comes to space management and AI, we're like, these stepchildren of AI. And so our effort really is to manifest our recommendations, our trends, our utilization, and eloquent language. How many of you have done your ChatGPT and said, wow, that said it much better than what I could? Here goes an email from ChatGPT. So our recommendations are now leaning towards harvesting technology and ChatGPT, and we have our own stand for ChatGPT to become much more, first intelligent before it becomes our guide and go-to resource. But here is our sensor analytics, and it gives us clear readings, and we have been able to prove very effectively, sorry, your on-call rooms are not being used. We can't build anymore. So all that space management can do is operationalize your needs. We've also started using QR codes in our lactation room needs. So we have been able to put QR codes on our doors for lactation rooms, especially when it came to PACU units. We were asked to, I don't have lactation room, and it became a big deal. It is a true need, and it was a big deal with our resident community as well as faculty. And so now we said, we will do a QR code. You can click on it. If that room is occupied, it will tell you where next to go. And last but not least, these are some of our ongoing process improvement efforts. We have the space guidelines, we've done process mapping, we've done dashboards, we've done standard playbook, and we are still trying to figure it out. All this I wouldn't be able to do without my dream team. I call them agents of SHIELD agents. We go undercover, we are covert, and with me is Heather. I'd like to invite her. She's my general, the brain behind the brawn here. Come on over. And you're welcome to ask any of us any questions.
Do we have any questions? Oh, perfect.
You should have known. So I have a question on how are you leveraging this across? Is it just at hospitals that you're doing this right now, or I saw you had like 200 different sites? Have you expanded it beyond just the hospitals, and then how do you see this from a multi-state system perspective?
So you're talking about the occupancy sensors? Yes. So hospital is always a delicate conversation. So we did it in our team on-call rooms and lactation rooms, and now we are going to do them in team rooms. We're just going and installing. We are putting a phased approach in our clinics for exam rooms, consult rooms, and offices. Most of our utilization really needs to be tracked, especially when telehealth kicks in, where more providers are using it for virtual visits rather than inpatient visits. So we are trying to optimize the data, both from occupancy sensors as well as the ability to use offices for virtual care or telecare and use exam rooms. So yes, we are doing a phased approach. There is a funding request. Fortunately, these are not that expensive. At least in Stanford world, we look like we can get 10 buildings or 12, 20 buildings done in any fiscal year in our budgets itself. So it's a rolled out approach. Our other biggest effort is to put them in administrative buildings, because one of our key efforts is to reduce our leases. Last year, in fact, a couple of years ago, we were successful in releasing a $12 million lease portfolio, and then annualized 4.5 in additional lease consolidation. So we have effectively proved that nobody wants to come back to work, especially in the administrative buildings. And there's also, like in Bay Area, if you're making over 160K, even more reason that they don't want to come into work. So it's always a clear indication of why we need to shed our real estate portfolio. We are hurting the commercial market, but that's how we are doing it. We are doing a phased rollout.
If I can just add, we're also looking at other data source integrations such as Epic and badge readers to solve for that problem of who is using the spaces. Is it the right people that are coming into the rooms? And if not, why are they using them, so we can have further, more sophisticated conversations?
Okay.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Oh, hi.
Can't see.
It's I'm Gary with Sickets Hospital from Toronto, and we recently just completed a administrative tower and integrated all the administrative staff, physicians into this one building. And of course, recently opened, lots of requests for changes and everything else. But I did notice on one of your slides you identified you integrated Archibus into this. Can you explain that, of how Archibus integrated with the room sensors or the occupancy sensors in those rooms?
That's still a work in progress. There hasn't been full integration, and we're actually exploring the long-time viability of Archibus and SpaceView. So we haven't solved that yet, but if anyone has any suggestions, please let us know.
But we have for lactation rooms. So Archibus has the system, so a QR code, and we have a reservation contact code system that now connect to each other. So our Archibus reservation module is an actual module that when you do the QR code read, it tells you where you can go reserve. And our workstations now have a QR code implanted into the workstation monitor that you can walk in, do a QR code read, and say, I want to reserve this for the next 4 hours or half an hour. And it will automatically close that reservation if you're not shown as in the chair in the half an hour that you made the reservation. So Archibus is expanding, but right now we have piloted in the QR code system to integrate with the reservation module.
Okay, I know I saw.
Hi, Ian McDermott from UHN in Toronto as well. Gary, we can talk about Archibus. We use Archibus as well, and we use the hoteling system. So a lot of what you talked about is very, very similar to everything that we're doing. So it's great to see that. My biggest challenge that we have is physicians and surgeons. They are an interesting crew. And I wonder, right now we have this entitlement of every physician, every surgeon requires an office, and their administrative assistant requires a workspace. Do you have the same issue, and how are you dealing with it?
Absolutely. Thank you. I feel the pain. So that's why that table. So, and especially when it comes to OSHPD 1 buildings and OSHPD 3 and ambulatory clinics, it's much more difficult to justify vacant offices. They're not there. And so our effort is really, look at that box. Now you're in a shared workroom. Oh, you really need one. Okay, let's take you to the box. And so it's an ongoing conversation, but we are recognizing, for instance, community providers, with the requirements, they cannot take any administrative work from homes. We did not realize that as a regulatory constraint, so they are required to have offices in clinics. And so we are rewriting, that's what I was saying, in the ambulatory setting, we are allowing for some of the offices, but also the School of Medicine has recently just finished their newest design, and I know some of you may be familiar with some of the prior speaker. The School of Medicine is more closely responsible for ensuring the officing and the seating assignments. And even they've built beautiful buildings, absolutely empty, millions of dollars empty, because it's away from the hospital. So now there's a recognition of how we partner closely with School of Medicine, but the onerous is still shared. In ambulatory, we take it on. In a hospital, it's the responsibility of School of Medicine. But it's a conversation always.
And I would just add, we have a very robust governance structure where we as space planning are not making the decisions. We bring this through our governance structure, and they approve these space guidelines, which includes entity support of our faculty and surgeons that weighed in on those space guidelines to say what's reasonable to ask of our faculty as well as our staff.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Priya,
Thank you.
Heather. Thank you.